Hands Off My Podcast is a proud member of Darkcast Network, where the light shines brightest on our indie podcasts. Hola, my beautiful humans. This is Jasmine Castillo.
And this is MW.
Bringing awareness of murdered and missing Indigenous women, girls, two-spirits, the LGBTQ community, Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, Black Indigenous people of color. These are their stories. So, welcome to Hands Off My Podcast. Part 1. Angela Green, a mother and a homebody, went missing in 2019. Angela obsessively loved her daughter, but gets into an argument with her. The argument was over her daughter's increased independence. Once the fight reaches the top, Angela asks her daughter to leave the home for the first time. The last time daughter Ellie sees her mom is when she's backing out of the driveway. Through her tears, she watches her mother go back into the house. The circumstances around her disappearance are strange. This case is a missing person, but is being investigated like a homicide. This is Angela's story. This story was recommended by MW, who is my co-host and researcher/blogger, and of course she has her own podcast called Ominously Positive True Crime. Another true crime podcaster, content creator that is dear to my heart. Thank you. Angela Green, by her family, sometimes called her Angie or Mom. At the time she disappeared, she was 51 years old. She was born in Baoding, Hebei, Xinghua in China, which was just outside of Tianjin, China. April 15, 1968, to parents who were professors. Angela's mother is still living in China, and her father had passed away sometime after the year 2000. Angela's sister, which will go by the initials CG, moved to New York some 10 years earlier to Angela. The two kept a relationship going even as their lives moved apart. CG has two daughters, one of whom, Michelle Guo, advocates for her Aunt Angela publicly. One niece is a lawyer and the other is a doctor. Angela had been a proud American citizen for over 20 years. There were some rumors of her having a dual citizenship in China. Angela grew up in China and studied English there as well. She was fluent in Mandarin, but her English was not perfect. And the reason why emphasis on this particular point in her fluency in English will come further down in the story. If you look at a picture of Angela, she was quite a beautiful woman with Asian features, about above average height of 5'7" to 5'9", and weight below average of around 110 to 115 pounds. She had a light to medium skin tone and a slim body build. Her hair is dark brown and was worn in a long bob with no middle part. In older pictures, she preferred longer styles. Angela's face is a heart with a wide smile, and she is a striking figure. In her photos, she is styled with makeup, earrings, and perfect clothing. MW describes her style as a beauty queen. Angela met her husband, Geoff Green, in Beijing, China during the late 1990s, while she was in her 20s. Geoff Green was working as a mechanic and a car salesman and had learned of Angela through a friend of her parents. They helped set up a date while he was on work trip. The courtship lasted 1 year and through the mail. This was Angela's first marriage, and she wanted to have a family right away. They had a rush marriage ceremony, moving to Kansas quickly on a K-9 visa, and had to be married within 90 days. Angela was aware that Geoff Green did not have a lot of money when she married him. There was something that Geoff left out. and he was not honest with Angela about his age. He was 13 years older than she was, and also did not tell her about his earlier family. The ex-wife was completely surprised by the marriage because he had told no one. There were other troubling signs in the marriage, but they were subtle. They treated each other as co-workers. They were not affectionate. They even slept in separate rooms. Angela had to ask for anything she needed and was conscious of all the money costs. She did not have a credit card or her own bank account. Her sister said that over time, Angela only spoke in English on the phone. Often hear Jeff in the background as if he was always listening. And Angela did not have a job in America, and she chose to stay at home to devote her time to her daughter. This devotion is often described as an obsession that became stronger than the older that Ellie Green become. Ellie said that her mother, quote, gave her life to me in one interview with Access Hollywood. Angela loves her daughter, but was very strict. There were no sleepovers, no parties, no dates, only school, piano, and homework. Angela expected Ellie to strive for perfection, to the point that she didn't even have a cell phone until her senior year of high school. The two were very close anyways. Described as a bit of a tiger mom and who pushed her daughter to be better and better. Angela would take thousands of photos of her daughter, mostly posed around her plants. The backyard was a safe place for the both of them, and they made many memories there together. Ellie is convinced that if her mom is still alive, she would reach out. Angela used to handwrite intricate notes for her daughter daily. M.W. had done extensive information about her story, and she identified that Angela may have had history of mental health. There was never any official diagnoses. One moment loving and protecting to Ellie, and the other aggressive and mean when Ellie would fail at something. Angela had a temper and would sometimes throw things at an argument. The maternal family described her as temperamental and might not want to talk. She also had a distrust for doctors and had only been to one to deliver her child, Ellie. Angela did not leave her home without being accompanied by someone. This was usually either Jeff or Ellie, and the reason is partly because of the language barrier. She didn't have deep friendships, but yet neighbors loved her and the work she did around their neighborhood. Angela's ability to look beautiful and put together also made her intimidating. If someone tried to make friends, they were redirected. The family home wasn't the type that you could just stop by and have a play date, and if that was the case, you had to have Jeff's approval. Angela did not use social media. She did not text or even carry a phone with her. Sometimes she kept the home dark and crowded with items. The darkened windows would spur neighborhood rumors that she may have been depressed. Yet overall, Angela was described as a very kind and thoughtful person. A person who was reserved and selfless, and a smart, beautiful woman. On top of that, she was an avid gardener and took care of her yard and the neighborhood free spaces. Some of her favorite plants were hostas, azaleas, and yuccas. Angela could cook and enjoyed cooking dumplings and spring rolls with her daughter. She also did next-level things like taking on extra projects at her daughter's school, making other children's costumes, or bringing lunches for teachers. And during the holidays, she would decorate the area, especially with American flags. Holidays were Angela's specialty, and she would make everything perfect. At the time of her mother's disappearance, Ellie was a freshman or sophomore in college. Ellie studied business honors and finance and data analytics at KU. Before this career field, she started in engineering and computer science. Recently, Ellie switched to journalism. The idea was to help people similar to her situation. In December of 2021, she was anticipating in graduating with a degree in journalism. Ellie herself is fluent in Mandarin and would converse with her mother in her mother's native language. Ellie can speak 4 languages in total. And sometimes Ellie had to be the mediator between her father and mother because they didn't speak a common language. Ellie excelled in school and was ahead of her college class. Ellie actually attended a beauty pageant around August 13, 2021, Northern Colorado's annual Miss Colorado USA and Miss Teen Colorado USA. It was her first time pageant, and she had hoped to win to use the platform to put the spotlight on her missing mother. Ellie said her mother wanted her to become a pageant queen. Previously, they didn't have the funds to compete, but between donors and other support, Ellie now can. And based on MW's information, currently, Ellie is working with Sarah Turney and has started to advocate through TikTok and podcasts. During his wife's disappearance, Jeff has given inconsistent stories and minimal emotions. In one of the stories, he mentions that he thought maybe his wife faked her death to hurt him, but gave no supporting evidence. And during that time, Jeff tells Ellie that he realizes he's probably a primary suspect. Then he cautions his daughter against talking to the police. On June 19, 2019, which was a Wednesday around 6 p.m., at the family home just off of Tomahawk Road in Prairie Village, Kansas, Ellie had been home for about 5 days. From having been studying abroad in Italy and Russia for about a year, Angela had been anxious to have her daughter back home and had wanted her to stay home for the summer. Now, according to Ellie, her mother was having trouble coping with her becoming more independent. First, a Ford Fusion in April, then her first boyfriend, then this trip abroad where her mother wasn't able to be part of her daily life. Angela seemed controlling of her daughter and may have tried living vicariously. Now, it is unclear when Angela started her hoarding tendencies, but she had been collecting during Ellie's absence. Also, she lost a drastic amount of weight, becoming more anxious, which prevented her from not sleeping well. And Angela had hinted to her daughter she felt like she was unraveling. This statement was days before the argument occurred. Many sources like to boil the argument that night into a simple mother-daughter fight. The argument lasted hours. It included the father as well. There was some violent explosions, like Angela throwing flowers at her daughter. Ellie couldn't follow why her mother was so angry, and lastly, being kicked out was so unusual. Around 6 p.m., Ellie gets off of work in Kansas City, Missouri. Then she drives and picks up her father from his work and drives home. They were on time and neither early nor late. This was the typical and normal for them. The argument started around 6:30. Angela was unhappy with Ellie, growing up and flexing her independence, telling Ellie that she needs to be more productive and that she didn't like her new blouse. Angela also stressed that she wasn't happy with Ellie's friends. Ellie said she could usually predict how the arguments would go and what caused her mother's anger, but that night she couldn't follow her mother's train of thought. According to Ellie, the argument lasted hours and felt like a roller coaster that slowed down but only went up. Jeff had attempted to calm his wife down during one of these lulls. The house was small, so Ellie heard everything even though she was in her own room. Jeff says things to his wife like, "You seriously need to stop and think about who you're yelling at." Ellie said her father tried to rationalize with Angela because her mother could not at the moment. Now, this is a typical normal behavior for her father, and he had made similar attempts in the past. If the attempt failed, he would become quiet and withdrawn until Angela calmed down on her own. Following the past, Jeff now retreats to another room in the house. He had never become violent with Angela, but he did often threaten to take her into psychiatric care. This night, Ellie says that she thinks her father was trying to stand up for her. Finally, the fight culminates in Angela's telling her daughter to leave the home. Jeff, who was in another part of the home, may have not known the events happening at that moment. Quote, "I don't even know what he thought I would leave." End quote. A statement taken from Ellie on Profiling Evil full interview. In a later release recorded phone call, Ellie is speaking with her father, asking questions. She's wanting to know what happened after her mother threw flowers at her and after she left. There was no explanation, and neither said why flowers were thrown. It's unclear how much of the fight Jeff had seen and if he knew if it was escalating. The argument comes to an end after Angela hands Ellie a pillow. Angela says if her daughter didn't need her anymore, she should find somewhere else to sleep. Angela then packed her daughter a small backpack of things. She recalls that the fight ended around 8:30 p.m. Ellie backs out of the driveway, and she's sobbing as she watches her mother goes back into the home from the garage. This is the last time she sees her mother. Distraught, Ellie goes to the Shawnee Mission East Park to park her car and cry. Ellie calls her best friend in St. Louis, who sends comfort in the form of power song. Then she contacts her boyfriend, who goes to her and they walk for a bit. He knows his grandparents are up late, so he takes Ellie there to sleep. Ellie was expecting a swift apology and invitation to come home, but she did not get this. Instead, a late-night text from her father comes through around 9 p.m. That text was him asking where she was staying. Jeff, unlike his daughter, had been kicked out by Angela on several occasions. Usually he went to his brother's house or a hotel, and Ellie said this concern from her dad was normal, but it was unusual. He wasn't talking about Angela's behaviors. She asks her father later during a phone call how Angela was acting after the argument. Jeff said that she was building her nest around her and was unwilling to get help as usual. This had been building for over a year, and even with encouragement, she would not go to the doctor. Jeff offered to find her any doctor she wanted and get people to go with her if she wanted to. Jeff also mentioned that her eating habits were not good, saying that she was eating handfuls of cheese. On June 20th, 2019, Jeff texts again to let his daughter know he went to his brother's house. They wanted to have her over to talk about Angela. Ellie declines because she did not know if her mother was there or not. Ellie tells him that she has other plans. The paternal family will not confirm or deny the events. They have allegedly stopped talking to Ellie. Now, Ellie's boyfriend's family were under the impression that now both Ellie and Jeff had been kicked out of the home. Her boyfriend's family talked that they all decided to open their homes to Ellie to allow her to stay for however long she needed. She blended right into the family, and it was a joy for them. Her boyfriend's family loves Ellie, but assumed the argument she had would resolve quickly. They didn't want to step in on Ellie's family's toes by bringing Ellie into their family fold. They attempt to reach out to Jeff, but he doesn't want to talk and never ask for details about his daughter. Now, they thought this was quite strange. On June 23rd, this is the day Ellie received a text from her father, and it is unclear who texted whom first. And based on a statement from Profiling Evil, Where's Angela Green? One of the texts stated, quote, "M is getting mental health care, and I'm at home beginning to organize. Come by anytime. Front door is open." Later at 6:26 p.m., another text from Jeff saying that they needed help going through Angela's things and getting rid of stuff. The text doesn't raise alarm for Ellie because it wasn't unusual for her father to want Angela to get mental health. The only unusual part was that he was following through. Allegedly, Jeff was speaking with the facility and talking with an insurance company that day. At 6:48 and 7:15 p.m., more text messages. Quote, "We met the mental health people in the store parking lot and it was a struggle. Better than trying to pry her out of the house. And she always looks good going out, so she did not have the embarrassment of house clothes or untidy house." The next message said, "Oh, don't let anyone know about Mom," including the redacted maternal family name, "until I know more about her condition." Jeff stated, quote, "I didn't want you to think she had run off with some stranger to do something and, I thought it would be, the truth is that she kind of disappeared," end quote. Angela did not leave the house without looking nice and taking her personal items with her like a purse. These items were all left at home. Jeff also is not able to provide information on which store parking lot this exchange took place in. Sometimes he would say Price Chopper, Aldi, or just a store near their home. No information on the health facility either was given. Text from Ellie asking where her mother is being left unanswered. Ellie goes to ask her father in person where her mother's hospital was. The only information he gives is that it's, quote, "down south." Ellie assumed when he meant down south in Johnson County, but now realizes he could have meant anything by that. There are no connections anywhere south that Ellie knows of except in Florida State. The paternal family lives in Oakland Park, and that area is also considered south. Requests to visit Angela were ignored. Ellie even has her boyfriend's mother ask on her behalf, and that is ignored. Jeff said that he did not want anyone to know about her condition or visit until she was better. Jeff had allegedly visited, and Angela was violent with him and not following her treatment plans. Quote, "Dad said Mom is gone. The door is open. You're welcome to stay here." End quote. And that she had an eerie feeling about the house. Stay tuned for part 2, which is next. Thank you for listening to Hands Off My Podcast. If you are enjoying the podcast and you'd like to support the mission, I do have a Patreon membership that will help the cause and bring more detail on cases and stories from the people of color community. If you yourself has a lost loved one or a story suggestion, please don't hesitate to contact me at email handsoffmypodcast@gmail.com. And if you are only able to support in another way, please give this podcast a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify and continue to listen to upcoming episodes every Thursday, wherever you listen to your podcast. Dios te bendiga.